Ooh, y'all feel that? I don't know where y'all live, but up here in New York, that's that autumn wind cutting through. And that only means one thing for me, baby. Football season, week 4. Let's get it. Yo, what up, everyone? It's your boy Debo with Debo's Picks. I want to recap my picks from Thursday night as well as go over my picks for Sunday's game. So let's get right into it. Starting off with a 3-player deal I gave out, consisting of Tyreek Hill going over his receiving yards, Joe Mixon going over his receptions, and Hayden Hurst going over his receptions. Now, Hayden was a push. He actually had 4 catches, but it got called back due to offensive holding, so that sucked. But regardless, it was a push, and however you slice it, it's a W. And then I had a 5-player flex consisting of Tyreek Hill going over his receiving yards, Joe Mixon going over his receptions, Hayden Hurst going over his receptions, Evan McPherson going over his field goals made, and Jason Sanders going over his field goals made. Then I had another 5-player flex consisting of Tyreek Hill going over his receiving yards, Tua Tagovailoa going under his fantasy score, Joe Mixon going over his receptions, Hayden Hurst going over his receptions, and Evan McPherson going over his field goals made. And lastly, I had a 4-player deal consisting of Tyreek Hill going over his receiving yards, Hayden Hurst going over his receptions, Evan McPherson going over his field goals made, and lastly, Joe Mixon going over his receptions. So what does that mean for us? All 4 plays hit. That's a clean sweep, baby. And I felt like I haven't said that in years, even though it's been like a week. And I want to keep that going. So with that said, let's get into my picks for Sunday's game. Starting off with a 2-player deal I got down below. Saquon Barkley going over 80.5 rushing yards. And I got Jamal Williams, who's going to be a fan favorite from a betting standpoint, to go over any of his prop bets. But for here, I got his fan score going over 15. Then I got a 5-player flex consisting of Saquon going over his rushing yards, Jamal Williams going over his rushing yards, Javonte Williams going over his rushing yards. Then I got Austin hitting with the Eckler, scoring at least 1 touchdown. He's got either a passing, a rushing, or a receiving as his option. The dude's going to get into the end zone. He just has to, going up against the Texans. He has 0 TDs thus far this season. I say he has a huge game. So if y'all doing your lines for FanDuel, throw him in there because he's going to show up. Then I got K. York to finish it off, going over his field goals made. Then I got another 5-player flex consisting of Saquon going over his rushing yards, Jamal Williams going over his rushing yards, TJ Hawkinson going over his receptions, K. York going over his field goals made, and Young Ho Koo going over his field goals made. Then I got a 3-player deal consisting of Jamal Williams going over his rushing yards, TJ Hawkinson going over his receiving yards, and Austin Eckler going over half for either passing, rushing, or receiving touchdown. Either way, the dude's going to get in. If he doesn't, he's done for the year. I don't know. I'm just messing with y'all. But he's definitely got to get in the end zone. Then, lastly, I got my other 5-player flex consisting of Tyler Lockett going over his receptions, TJ Hawkinson going over his receptions, Zach Ertz going over his receptions, Jamal Williams going over his rushing yards, and Austin hit him with the Eckler going over 0.5 TDs, whether it's passing, rushing, or receiving. So those are my picks for Sunday. You can mix and match, tail all together. I feel really good about these. Let's get that cheddar. All the best. Peace.